It is our pleasure now to welcome back to the show Andrew Siciliano from the NFL Network. Of course, he is a DC native. Rest in specifically an ongoing joke that is also reality between he and I. Andrew, what's up, man?
Craig, good to talk to you. What's going on?
You know, just out here doing the training camp thing, covering a team owned by Josh Harris. What dreams are made of?
How does that feel?
Better than it did previous years.
What do you know?
What do you know? How does it feel for you as someone who grew up rooting for this team and now covers the league? And I mean, I'm sure, you know, you've had so many private conversations over the years with friends, colleagues. I'm sure you have buddies from when you grew up that hit you up and you're just like, man, Snyder. And, you know, now to see what those conversations are like as we were progressing towards last Thursday and ultimately got there, like, what's been the reaction in your world about this?
Yeah, it's a brave new world, and I think the most important thing is to look forward. I mean, we will have a lifetime of stories. Everyone does who's lived through the last 25 years. There were good moments, and there were plenty of bad as well to tell their kids about. You know, this era of Washington football. I am old enough, thankfully, to remember the Jack Kent Cooke days when they were winning. Every year, and as they used to say, you could shoot a cannon down Constitution Avenue during games, right? Because nobody was outside. If you weren't at RFK, you were inside watching the game and likely listening to Frank Sam and Sonny on the radio with the TV turned down. You hope you can get back to those days and those winning ways. The league's a lot different now than it was in the 80s, right? Charlie Casserly and Bobby Beathard, you know, can't stash guys on the taxi squad, as it used to be called. And there was no plan B free agency. And, you know, it's not like it was. And you couldn't always trade your number one pick. The Rams can, like they used to do back then, and build teams differently. But you just hope that you can get back to the passion in the community and the connection between the team and the community that you had back then. Because if you can even get close to that and awaken the sleeping giant, then I think it's not only great for all the fans there, but it's great for the league. And the league's a lot different. You know, back then there was no team in Carolina, for Pete's sake. You know, Washington Redskins territory stretched a lot further south than it does now. But there is a sleeping giant that hopefully can wake back up and remind the league what used to be.
I totally agree. And what I've been trying to do, Andrew, and I've had folks on, especially national folks or folks tied to other organizations in some way, and the way I'm about to frame this question, you're going to tick both boxes, is ask, like, what are things that are done at an ownership level that someone like Josh Harris can implement? For those that just watch you on NFL Network, they might not know that you are very close with the Rams organization as you do their preseason games as part of the broadcast. And so, you know, and obviously you've got a front row seat to what they do when they moved the team from St. Louis to Los Angeles, and how they tried to build up the fan base there, which had been dormant for, you know, many, many, many years. Is there something that Kroenke and his group did when they got to LA that you thought was particularly smart, would be smart for the Harris group to repeat here in Washington?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm actually on my way to Rams training camp right now. They're similar, but they're different, these scenarios here. You know, the Rams returned to a city that they had called home for 50 years. They moved here in the mid-40s from Cleveland. They won championships here. They were the toast of the town. And they had to remind people when they came back in 16 that this is home, right? And they needed to remind people that this was their town. They lost multiple generations of fans here because while they were gone, fantasy football became a thing. While they were gone, Sunday tickets became a thing. Kids learned to love the game through the Red Zone channel, through fantasy football. They didn't need a team down the street to go to and to root for. And I think now you have a similar but not identical situation. I think you do kind of have to regain a lost generation But it's not entirely lost. This team has won games. This team has not left town. This team still has a stadium and a fan base and merchandise, and yes, they changed names. But you still have a sport that has been passed down from father and mother to son and daughter. Like, you still have that, but you have to regain what has been lost, because the young fan right now, I'll give you an example. My nephew lives in Loudoun County. He's gone to games there at FedEx, but he's gone to games elsewhere as well. When my brother goes on the road, and he takes him with him. And he loves his fantasy football. His neighbor down the street is a huge Bengals fan for no reason, other than they're good and they play him on Madden. That we didn't have that 30 years ago. So now you got to compete with that. I think, though, that there is enough there to build upon, and just the jubilation in the ownership change can carry you a long way. But you got to win. You also got to fix the stadium situation. That takes time, but they can do it.
Andrew Siciliano, NFL Network, with us here on the Hoffman Show. So that's actually what I was going to ask you next, because you mentioned, he goes to games, and like that's a hell of a hike from Loudoun County. But also, if you think about what the Rams did, like ultimately, while they played at the Coliseum for a couple of years, they eventually built this beautiful, beautiful stadium that is as state of the art as it comes in SoFi, and we've seen the reaction that fans have to that. Is a destination that people want to go. To you, what is the more important thing when it comes to the stadium? Is it getting back to the RFK site, or is it another geographic location, or is it what they actually build on whatever piece of land that they pick?
I think the fans will come wherever it is, and certainly there's a lot of nostalgia, and you heard Josh Harris say it on the podium last week about that RFK site. My first football game was there against Billy Sims. And Billy Sims, right, the old Lions running back, and the Lions that sold the program. I don't think it matters where. Whether it's on the current FedEx site, whether it's in Northern Virginia, and for my family in Northern Virginia, they probably don't want to see it there for traffic concerns, but everyone else could say that as well. The old not in my backyard thing, I'm sure will have its day in the coming months as they try to figure out where it will go. But as long as you get that stadium to be a destination again, wherever that destination is, I don't think you can lose. Make it a modern, state-of-the-art facility that fans want to go to, and I think if they put it on the moon, people would be okay with it.
Andrew Siciliano, NFL Network, with us for a few more minutes here on the Team 980. Of course, in order to get people to show up, winning's good. Winning will help. And they are not predicted by a lot of your brethren in the national media, Andrew, to do a lot of winning this year. For you, when you look at this team, we all know the question marks. So how likely are they to overcome it? Do you think this is a team that can legitimately compete for a playoff spot?
I think the NFC East, obviously you have the power at the top with the Eagles and the Cowboys here. The Giants were a playoff team. They won a playoff game. I think they're an ascending team as well, and a well-coached ascending team. You'd have to think that the Commanders, at least on paper, are fourth in the division, but it doesn't mean a darn thing at the time being. I believe in Sam Howell. I think that they, not only with Eric Bieniemy, and that's going to get the headline, but just with the pieces around him, have set him up to succeed. It's a very good situation. He has better weapons than Bryce Young, all due respect to Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen and those pieces. There, he has better pieces than Bryce Young is going to be able to work with. He's got backs. He has a very talented wide receiver room. Maybe they figure out tight end. I think he will be set up for success. I also, Craig, as you know, I have a lot of family in Cleveland. I have a soft spot in my heart for the Browns. I'm a huge fan of Jacoby Brissett. There were some moments last year, especially early in the year, when he had a chance to win games in 2-minute drives where it didn't happen. But he had plenty of moments later in the year where he was great. He's a beloved teammate. He's a great leader. You ask anyone who's ever played with him or coached him, a lot of people will tell you that he is their favorite person in the league. So I think Sam Howell's got a great mentor, and if it doesn't work out, you got a great guy there to win you some games and to try to figure out what comes next. But It's a fascinating situation because you have new ownership. And Ron Rivera's spoken openly about this. I know he's excited to get back to football. We will see how it goes because obviously new ownerships will always put their stamp on things. But I think Ron Rivera's got enough skins on the wall here to earn a legitimately fair shot here, and I think that's what he's going to get.
If I were to talk to your producers and say, what's the name that excites you the most about the Washington Commanders? What's the thing that's most likely to get the Commanders to the top of NFL Total Access on NFL Network? My guess, Andrew, would be that it's something adjacent to Chase Young. What are your expectations for Chase on the year, and how much sizzle does he still have in terms of his national profile, considering all the time he's missed and the production that he hasn't yet produced in his NFL career because of said time missed?
I don't know that he still has that sizzle. I still think he has name value, and I still think people are, they want to see him play well, but it has been so long. When it comes to the edge rushers, the Bosas and the Garretts and all those guys, you want to go Q rating, if that's still a word, I don't even know.
Works for me. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Instagram power, right? Those guys are further on the list, but Chase Young gets back to sacking the quarterback. Yeah, he helps lead the show. I also think, talking about my favorite guy there, and I can think that it's a guy that I think deserves a bigger national platform. I think Terry McLaurin is must-watch TV, not must-see TV, not only on the field, but that guy is as thoughtful and as great a podium watch as any player in the NFL that isn't a quarterback. Like, anytime Terry McLaurin's on the podium and I'm sitting at my desk at the network, I stop what I'm doing and watch because I think that guy's great. I think he's a great example for that franchise on the field and in the community. I think he's a guy that deserves more national attention, not only on the field, but in the community as well.
Zero disagreement. I actually had a great quick catch up with Terry today. I haven't seen him in a while, and just was reminded how genuine salt of the earth that dude is. Could not agree more. All right. Enjoy Rams training camp. Tell my old friend Sean I say hello, and appreciate your time here on the show, man. We'll have to do it again during the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig will do it. I'll send Sean your best. New baby coming in not till October. Yep. It's a little boy.
It is.
So, I'm sure he'll be calling plays by the time he's 2 years old.
And he'll remember everyone he calls for the rest of his life, because that is truly...
He will never forget.
That is truly the McVay trick. All right, Andrew, appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Gotcha, man. Talk to you soon.
This is The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.